Kia ora, thank you for coming along. It's the last session of the day, so I know it's always kind of been a long one. Hopefully this will be a good experience for those of you that are moving toward Ultra and considering it. And we're looking at just a really honest snapshot of something that's in its very, very early stages. The courses that we're talking about went live last Monday. So it's very fresh, it's very new. It's also not my work, it's the work of our digital learning project team, and they've done, honestly, a fantastic job of it. So I'm Emma Page, I'm the Senior Application Specialist at Southern Institute of Technology, and I've had quite a lot of questions asking where Invercargill is. It's the southernmost English-speaking city in the world. So we're about as small as you can get in terms of cities, and we're right at the bottom of the world. My job is mostly around support and training for our staff in the use of things like Blackboard, SharePoint, and our student management system. I used to be a teacher, so a lot of what I do is based around the sorts of things that I would do in the classroom. And I kind of have a bit of a personal thing about distance learning because I'm myself a current postgrad student studying by distance online and hating it. Yeah, so SIT is a growing institute. We seem to be acquiring smaller bodies constantly. Earlier this year we had Telford join us. They're an agricultural campus and they're really small. They're farm-based and just outside of, I'd say outside of Invercargill, but about an hour and a half away. We have around 14,000 students, and last year we had 5,651 distance students who are working entirely in Blackboard. We are also on track to increase those student numbers by about 6% this year. It's important when we look at vocational education in New Zealand, because we are a vocational provider, to look at, I guess, the elephant in New Zealand, and that is on the 1st of August, the government announced the reform of vocational education. At the moment, we don't know what that looks like. It's kind of an overbranching body of the 16 polytechs and institutes of technology in New Zealand, and it comes in a rather unfortunate date next year of the 1st of April. So we don't quite know how that's going to affect us, but we don't want that to affect our students, and we're going to keep pressing on to improve the quality of teaching and learning for our students, particularly those who are working entirely online. So when we looked at our online courses, we looked at the fact that we have a growing number of distance students, and that when those courses were moved online, they came from a physical workbook that was posted out to learners. And the courses became kind of a repository for that workbook. Students could download a PDF, they could upload their assignments. There wasn't a lot of actually making use of the features of Blackboard. We have off-site facilitators. They're scattered right across New Zealand. Most of them work in their industry and they facilitate for us as a part-time role. And the fact that distance study completion rates are generally not as high as the students who are on campus. And it seems to be right across institutes. I've worked for a few institutes in New Zealand over the last few years and have always worked with distant students. And it seems to always be a little point of how do we make this better? What can we do to kind of bring those up to the same level of completion as our on-site students? So we established the digital learning project, but the important things that we needed were buy-in, initially from management, because you can have somebody who is super enthusiastic, and if they go to the head of faculty and they're just like, meh, you don't get that follow through, you don't get, I guess, the motivation to actually commit to moving into Ultra or to improving your teaching and learning. So management always kind of look at things like, I guess from a money perspective, I hate to kind of put it like that, but that's really what it comes down to. It comes down to, we invest a lot in the resources and the tools that we have. Are we using those as well as we could? Are we getting value for money? Are we competitive in New Zealand? There are 16 other providers in vocational education. Especially with distance, students get a lot of choice as to where they go. Why should they choose us? And And we really do need management to drive that change. If it comes from the top, people have no excuse to not change. And then we need buy-in from tutors. And the most important things really are, do they have the resources that they need to be able to do their job well? Do they know how Ultra works? Are they comfortable and confident using a computer? And are they motivated to do so? So we can have fantastic tutors who do an amazing job, and then we can also have some who do the very minimum. And it's finding that balance and motivating those ones who maybe aren't doing as well as they could to actually reach that potential and to do as well as the more motivated and the more committed tutors. We looked at best practice, and my colleague Travis, who came to TLC last year, he used this opportunity to actually have a look at what everybody else was doing, to compare us, saying, what are we doing well? What are other people doing well? Are we as good as them? Can we learn from them? And to look at why people were doing the things that they were doing, the decisions that they made, looking at, okay, so you've implemented this is nice and shiny, but what impact has it had? Why did you choose to do this? And kind of where I fall in is the research side, and the research into distance learning and into digital education, how we can combine the two to actually create something that's based on best practice rather than just, oh, this is shiny. Students will like this, it's really colourful, it's got lots of pictures. It's like, it's pretty, but is it effective? Then we had to go through and actually identify the challenges. All of our distance courses are run by a group on our campus called Sit to Learn, and we have had 2 previous unsuccessful attempts to migrate Sit to Learn from original into Ultra. So we're going with third time lucky this time, and so far it seems to be working really well. Our application support team, because at the time we didn't have a digital learning project team, they sat down and they worked out what limitations Ultra had at the time. So we're talking 12, 18 months ago. What roadblocks were there that Ultra had that could hinder a smooth transition for our students and for our staff? And at the time, we thought that maybe it was too early. So the team waited for a few of the bug fixes and to have a look at what was coming and things that were being developed, and then made that decision to actually migrate these courses into Ultra. And we learned a lot from the acquisition of MAINS, which is the Music and Audio Institute of New Zealand. They came to us from Moodle and we put them straight into Ultra. We gave them some training, we've given them support, but ultimately we've kind of left them to their own devices to see what tools they use and how they actually make use of Ultra. And we've kind of drawn upon the things they've done well and the things that they've struggled with to inform how we deliver our distance courses. And then from that, the Digital Learning Project team was founded, and that is led by Travis, who was formerly in my role, and a team of instructional designers. So we went from this, which was our old, I say old, but this is actually a current intake for our students who are studying at the moment. They had a list of textbooks they could have a look at, and they had a PDF they could download. It's not a very effective use of Blackboard. Surprisingly, we had very good completion rates. We're looking up around 85%. But we shifted to this, where we have content organised into modules, we have it broken down into topics, and we have the use of the tutor up there is very accessible. We're trying to actually separate out our content managers from our tutors so they don't come up there as multiple instructors, but to actually make it an easy system for our students to navigate. And so far they've had no input from us as to how to work Blackboard. They know how to log in, and the rest of it, working out how to navigate it, has all been intuitive and has been on the part of the students themselves. So when we drill down into those modules, we have made the decision to put a time next to each thing. Because our students are distance students, they often tend to be leading quite a busy life outside of their study. If we can break things down and say, look, it's only going to take you 5 minutes to read through this, you're starting to hook people in. It's like, oh, I've got 5 minutes now, I'll have a look at this. Kind of learning about this, in this case, a viral disease. And it's like, well, actually, what causes that? That's 5 more minutes. That's nothing major. I've got 5 minutes. And trying to sort of entice students in to spend more time, to know what time things are going to take. And to include the use of formative discussions within that module rather than having to click out to an assessment. And within each of those pages that we've got a mixture of text, we've got images, we've got video. And from walking around and talking to people today, I'd actually really like to create our own videos and actually look at how we can make these more interactive so it's not just a passive learning experience for our students. So we've got some early feedback. Like I said, this has been live since last Monday. So a week and a half. It's very, very early days. So we've had some positives. When I was teaching, we always had positive, a negative, and a wish. But I've kind of gone with 3 wishes, as if TLC is our genie, and if we could have 3 wishes, this is what it would be. So the positives, our staff really like the structure. They find it really clean, really simple, really user-friendly. They like the fact that modules allow them to group bite-sized learning and to have things structured by theme. They also really like the fact that if a student isn't doing so well, they can actually restrict their access to the next module. This isn't something that we've rolled out for this particular course, but it is something that we've been talking to some of our other Ultra adoptees about the fact that if a student is struggling with a fundamental concept, we can't actually move them on to something more advanced where they need to apply that. So the negatives have been the fact that anybody who is listed as an instructor has gotten an email from a student because we encourage them to email their instructors in the first 2 weeks. So including a lot of our application support team, our content managers, they've received emails from students, and ideally that should only go to their instructor. It's a bit of a little niggly one, but it has been enough for some people to be like, well, if this is one course, that's fine. What happens when it's all courses and we have 5,000 emails come in? And the big one for some people has been tables, and especially in assessments, and coming up with ways to get students to fill it, like what would have been a fill in a blank in a table, in a way that doesn't involve tables. And I've seen some interesting concepts, some interesting trial and error, where people have chosen to turn it into sentences with fill in the blanks, which for unit standards courses works really well because they have all or nothing. You must get 100% to pass. But for non-unit standard courses, a student can actually pass it with anything above sort of 50%. So having an all or nothing, such as fill in the blanks, is not necessarily the best tool, but it seems to be the one that our tutors go to. And our wishes would be a text editor that gives us more freedom, gives us the ability to see what it is that we're producing. Sorry?
We're on original, so there's no really good content.
No, there is an original, and this is what is kind of getting some people to ask us if they can go back. We're kind of having to draw a line in the sand and say no. Yeah, you can do things like bold and italics and things like that, but yeah, some students and some tutors want far more than that, especially with things like adding in a table to show your understanding of something. They want better LTI integrations. So they want the ability to change the size of an image that they've embedded. And they want self-marking questions within documents. So things like the ability to have a full plugin for something like H5P, rather than having to click on external content. Because we ultimately want everything to be contained within Blackboard as much as we possibly can. And some early feedback from our students. So this has been the biggest one this week that we've had. Students have been struggling with formatting text. So again, things like how to crop photos, probably not really an issue directly related to the Blackboard itself, but possibly the way that we support students in this. And looking again at formatting text within documents and within submissions. But there's been some positives too. Students who have come from previous distance courses taught in original moving into Ultra, they seem to really like it. They like how sleek it is, it's uncluttered, they can see exactly what they need to do, spaced out, and they can plan their time really well. They're already thinking about ways that they can apply their learning to their current context, which is really good. And overall, students are very happy with how things are. We just have a few little bugbears that we need to work out. So the successes of the project so far, the team has converted 2,600 pages of content into digital materials in Ultra. They have created 95 new courses, and for the start of the next intake, which is in about 5 or 6 weeks, they have a whole portfolio of courses that are going to be released. They're about 2 months ahead of schedule, which is pretty good because the team's been working full-time on this for about 2 months. So they've worked really, really quickly, and they feel like they're getting the hang of it, that they're constantly getting through things quicker. And they're soon going to be starting work on the distance taught degree programs, which are pretty big and are pretty complex compared to our certificate ones, which are broken down into nice little bite-sized units. So next, we are going to go through and evaluate the animal care certificate, which is this first one that we've rolled out. Have a look at the things that worked well that we can apply to other courses, and the things that maybe we need to go back and rework. We're going to continue development with our distance taught courses. And we haven't rolled out Collaborate just yet for our distance courses. We thought that we'd kind of give our tutors a little bit of time to get used to Ultra before bringing in, here's an online classroom you can use. And also some of them are a little bit iffy at the moment about the idea of being on film. And so even though you don't have to record, it's the idea of being like, oh, somebody can see me. But it's okay, I mean, in a classroom that would be the case. It's just overcoming that barrier of somebody can see me through my computer. And to work on increased staff buy-in for distance and blended delivery. Because there's always, when you've got a large volume of staff, there's always going to be some that are more keen to move into a new way of doing things than others. And with our on-site courses, we've been quite fortunate that some of our staff have seen what other people are doing and started asking us questions about when they're going to Ultra. So it's getting there. Yeah. Has anybody got any sort of questions about how we've done things and why we've done things the way that we have? Yep.
I've got a question. I was just
Yeah.
going to say that for my student assessment stuff, I just create Word templates and get them to work with it because of that issue with tables.
Yeah, we've been trying to avoid having them download a document, save it, upload a document, because our help desk get kind of flooded with questions of how do I upload this? And students been like, I think I saved it, but I don't know where, and having to try and help them to actually navigate their computer. Yeah, ideally we want the only barrier to the students' learning to be the course materials, not how it's actually presented to them. Yeah. Cool. We have. We've kind of gone beyond just what's available in Blackboard, and we've also included things like some external content like crosswords and things like that. But we're using a lot of the mix and match questions, because those are actually a really good way of doing your tables. I've been trying to convince people of it, but it seems to only be a small group that have taken that up. Not so much the fill in the blanks, just because of the fact that it is an all or nothing, and some of our questions would have quite a few different parts to it. But yeah, trying to avoid those longer text-heavy questions and trying to use more sort of multimedia things as well. Yes.
We also use VoiceThread for some of our assessments. So the students actually input, they can put video, photos, audio files, text files, and it's really simple.
Oh, it's always handy. We've actually got a few of our distance facilitators who give verbal feedback. So they record feedback and upload it. They find it's far more convenient because they've often got their phone with them, record it through their phone and then just upload it to Blackboard. Which is, yeah. But yeah, any tools that kind of make that as simple as possible, always good. We're not. We would like to, and I know that the Digital Learning Project team are really super keen to, but at the moment, because we can post a link for a student to access it externally, there's a bit of reluctance there as to, like, maybe we can find something else that we can actually embed in Blackboard.
Any other questions from anyone? No? Okay. Well, everyone, thank you to everyone. So,